Welcome to Legacy Engineered, the show where smart structure meets lasting success. Join Scott Arden, Chairman and CEO of Controllers Limited, as he sits down with business leaders, top entrepreneurs, and experts to uncover the strategies, stories, and structures that build lasting legacies. And now, here's your host, Scott Arden.
Hello and welcome to the Legacy Engineered podcast. I'm your host, Scott Arden, and today we have an awesome guest. I want to introduce you to Emily Sisneros, Esquire, who is the chairman of the Built to Exit and the co-founder and CEO of Cana Business Services. With impact across 31 global markets and 1,000 client projects under management, she brings cradle-to-grave expertise in highly regulated industries spanning compliance, operations, capital readiness, and exit prep. Welcome to Legacy Engineered, Emily. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, and I know we did, you're also married to one of my previous guests, which I know you two are going to be doing a podcast with me together, but he says my better half. So this is Jason Cisneros' better half.
Yes.
Well, awesome. Well, I know, we've been working together for quite a while, working with different businesses, kind of taking a deep dive into those businesses to really make sure that everything is structured correctly, right? From a compliance standpoint to an asset protection standpoint to ensuring that the business is viable to scale or eventually sell. And so that's what really we're going to be talking about today. And I definitely look forward to that fun conversation. So I asked Jason this question as well was, with that, what was really the driving force behind you choosing this path, your why, so to say?
That's a really great question. So choosing, I guess, which path, because I feel like I've done 100 different paths.
Right.
From the beginning, I guess. Gosh, I was in college, so I guess it kind of goes back. I started by practicing law. I don't practice law anymore. I have an active law license, and obviously, like you had mentioned, run the consultancy, and then co-founded Built to Exit with my husband, and then we have a bunch of different businesses under management. But when I started as an attorney, I think prior to that, I was just in school, and I wanted to go down a path that provided an income that was, I saw how hard my parents worked, and it was a single income family. My mom worked really hard raising us as a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked really hard day in and day out, never complained, and it was tireless work. And I just thought, man, he can't even take a day off. And then when the recession happened, my mom had to pick up some work, and she took jobs she hated overnight so she could stay home with us during the day and work overnight. And so I just got to a place where I was like, I think it would be really cool if I could work somewhere that provided me an income that I could not have to do that, and I could give back to my parents so that they don't have to work that hard anymore. And I thought being a lawyer was going to combine my skill sets and the things that I had a passion for with a career path that I wanted. And it was really great. It was a great experience. And what I realized is I kind of created a really beautiful prison for myself. I didn't like corporate life. I would look out of my office windows. I was just telling someone this last night at dinner, and I'd look out my office windows and think, I want to be outside, but I have to work on someone else's schedule. And right. What if I work better in the early morning hours from like 3 till 9? But you have to be there at corporate hours, and you have corporate structure, and you get a raise in 12 months, not 11 months, like all of these different things that made no sense to me. And I thought, man, if I could just own my own business, I could give my employees raises when they earned it. I could give them commissions when they made a sale, all these different things. And it was right at the time when medical cannabis was starting in Pennsylvania. So I left the firm, started my own consultancy to help people get licensed, and everything took off from there. That was 2016 that I left practice, and 2017 that I left, somewhere around there. And so I don't know that I started with a real why. I never really asked myself that question. So it's really interesting to look back, because I guess my why in the beginning was I don't want to be in like a grunt work job for the rest of my life and have no real endpoint and have to really have tight funds at the end of the month and figure out how to feed my family. And I also wanted to be able to give my parents a break. And
Right.
I achieved that. And then I realized, oh my gosh, my why has changed. And it's more so, how do I create a life that I want to live that has more freedom? And that's when I started my own business.
That makes sense. Well, and what area of practice did you start out in, when you were with corporate? What was it, the cannabis, or was it contract? What was it that you
It
were
was
initially doing?
it was civil litigation. So
Okay.
anytime contracts fell apart or someone slipped and fell, or we had a hospital system to defend or something like that, when relationships broke apart, that's when the division that I worked in had to step in, which was really exciting. And I have to say, the firm I worked for was amazing. And it was the best situation I could be in. And I learned so much about contracts, so many skill sets that I carry into my businesses every single day, including being able to draft my own contracts, review my own contracts. So it does save me a lot of money in legal fees, but I still also have attorneys where I need them. And so I'm smart enough to know that I do need attorneys on certain things. So that's how I started. And then when medical cannabis started in Pennsylvania, that's where I was practicing law. Our clients, I helped build that cannabis division with some of the firm members. And then we helped on some client projects to get secure licenses in that very first round. And it was so difficult. And I saw consultants at the time that were not providing good work product. And I was like, I could do this so much better than them. And I can make these clients so much happier. And
Right.
so I thought, if I could provide a work product and work ethic of an attorney without the legal fees, without being an attorney, being a consultant, working my own hours, hiring my own staff, I think it'd be a great idea. So that's what I did. And I was broke for a long time. And then I started making money.
Well, well, I guess that kind of what happens with transition from one, to the other. But here you are now, and you guys are just growing by leaps and bounds. When it comes to the cannabis industry and helping multiple different other companies out there really, get positioned to grow, to scale, and so that's just awesome. That is awesome. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, every journey has its ups and downs. And I guess, what were some of the early roadblocks maybe you hit, or are there any ongoing ones that continue to shape your path?
Man, that's a good question. I feel like it's funny you say that, because I was about to say, I feel like I could write a book on this. And about 6 years ago, I was like, I'm going to write a book on this and so I started keeping a list of all the mistakes I was making. And I was like, I'm going to put all this in a book one day. And hopefully this will help so many people not make these mistakes, because I've spent so much time and money on doing the wrong thing the first time, that I was like, man, if I could write a book and just have someone flip to chapter 2 and be like, I was about to make this dumb decision, I'm glad I read this chapter. I feel like it would be amazing. I have not written that book yet. I do have a running list of all the chapters and all the content of what I would put in. So I think I'm on chapter like 35 of mistakes. But yeah, I think in the beginning, I certainly focused on things that I enjoyed more. I wanted, focused on building a nice website and making things pretty and all these, and I was like, this is entrepreneurship. Like, I love this. And I was making no money. I was making no sales. And Jason had the B2X system course, that foundation course. And it was previously named the growth course at that time. And I purchased it on like the last dollar I had. And I was like, I'm not making any money. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is the worst, but it's still better than working for someone else. So I'm fine with it. And
Right.
I bought the course and I put everything into it. And I was like, this is my last shot of making this work. I don't know what else I'm going to do. And so that taught me a lot. It was like a master class in business. I didn't even know how to spell entrepreneurship in college. So I didn't even know what that was. So then to be kind of throw myself into entrepreneurship in such naivety, looking back, is hilarious. But I'm glad I did. Because if I knew how hard it would be, I probably would have hesitated. So I'm glad I was naive. I wouldn't say that's a mistake. Jump in, be naive, because it's probably the best decision you'll make. But I focused on the wrong things. That was certainly one of the biggest hurdles that I had. And then I had a phone call with Jason. He's like, well, how many sales calls are you making a day? And I said, 0. I'm working on a nice website though. It's going to be launched. I'm going to get customers. He's like, okay, but how many sales calls are you making? I was like, 0. I don't want to make sales calls. I hate sales calls. They're uncomfortable. This is not for me. I'm not that type of person. I do not cold call. And he's like, well, then you're going to stay broke. And that was a very hard decision, like a hard realization I had to come to, is that, the things that you want are on the other side of the things you don't want to do. And that's what really changed my perspective on business. And so I set out every day, I made a goal on how many companies I would call and pitch our services. And I made that first sales call and I bombed it. It was so bad. And I cried afterwards and I was like, this is the worst. And I wrote down all my notes of how all the questions they asked. And I thought, okay, if I get any of these questions again, I will now have an answer that's prepared for those questions. So I had my little list of questions. I get on my next phone call. Maybe one of the questions overlapped, but the rest of them were new questions. I had stumbled through the answers, bombed the sales call, cried again. I called Jason. I'm like, this is the worst. And he's like, well, how many sales calls did you make? I'm like, 2. He's like, cool. You said you were going to make 50 today. So you better get back to work. And right? So, yeah, so, and I had to get comfortable with that. And then by like the 10th phone call, I started seeing a lot of patterns and I started to understand what people were asking. And I started to kind of self-teach. I was teaching myself like how to answer these questions. And I certainly wasn't good at sales at all. I then took the S-curve course that Jason put out, and that changed the game fundamentally for me. But until then, I was just kind of learning along the way. And now I love sales because now I'm like, I'm meeting a need that someone has. But if you would have asked me when I first started, I would have been like, I'm never going to do sales. I hate sales. It's not me. It's not who I am. And now I'm like, I love it because I know I'm meeting a need or a want that someone has. And if they don't want our services, that's fine. And I've just at least laid out what we can do for them and they can make the choice whether they want to move on or not. So that was definitely the first mistake I made or the first roadblock. That has not carried into today, thankfully. I think today, the thing that I still work through is how to not be as needed in my business because it's, and again, it goes back to this business dinner we had last night. Jason was just talking about it. I think business owners tend to want to be needed in their business, so they become their own worst enemy. And so they're constantly trying to feel needed and they'll step in. And we've got such an amazing staff of people that could run everything without me stepping in. But sometimes I find myself being like, I'll take this on. I can do this. And it's like, my operations team's like, you are messing this up. Like, you're not following the SOPs. Like, we built this. This is seamless. What are you doing? And I'm like, I just wanted to feel like I was needed today, So that's, I think, the ongoing thing that is always a learning process for me, but I've gotten a lot better.
Got it. Yeah, I remember when I was going through the growth course, Jason actually made mention of you several times. And I was like, oh, that I know her. And I know that there was a couple of, there was the first set that was done and then there was a re-record and that's probably where he included you in there, because you had bought the growth course, right? Yeah. So you weren't in it at the time. But yeah, that's awesome. And, as it relates to sales, I mean, nobody is very comfortable coming out the gate. Nobody goes in and says, I'm going to be a salesperson, right? It's a refinement process. It's learning how to really talk but more is listening to people, right? What are they looking for that I can provide a solution? I'm not trying to sell you a thing. I'm trying to provide that solution. And once you kind of understand that side of it, it changes the whole dynamic of sales, right? These are really more conversation. It's not a high pressure, you're selling a car, you're, trying to push this best new thing that came out, but just really having a conversation and listening to people and understanding what they want to be able to provide that solution so that it's not that it's an easy transition, right? It's not that high pressure aspect. So right. Absolutely, 100%. So with that, I mean, how have some of those experiences shaped the way you lead, you work, or you approach your business today?
I have fundamentally changed the way I look at business since I've grown so massively. I think in just not only the learning curve and learning through mistakes, but hiring a team, learning through those mistakes. I mean, you just constantly learn from mistakes as an entrepreneur. But I think what has changed for me is I look for mentors that have done it before me so that I can avoid making mistakes in the future. And it's been massively beneficial learning from Jason. I mean, before he was my husband, before we were even dating, it was just valuable listening to him talk, because he actually understood business in the same way that you understand how to protect your assets. I mean, those are things that are massively important. I think that, the way I look at business is different. And there were areas in the past where I made it way too complex, where it's a lot simpler than I used to make it. And then there's areas where I think I avoided that I don't avoid anymore, and I put the right time into it. And I think that's it. It's about allocating the right time and resources and focus and energy on the right things. It's not spending time doing busy work. Jason and I talk all the time about making things outcome oriented. We don't join meetings just to join meetings, just to bullcrap. We join with an outcome in mind, and that keeps it very dialed. I think that has certainly changed over time for me. I think hiring the right team and culture has been a massive thing for me, because I really, when my business took off, I just hired out of like necessity. And I was like, I need people who will help support these fulfill the sales that I was making. So then you kind of have a different problem. You made all these sales, and suddenly you're like, now I have to fulfill the sales I just made, right? And while you're not letting sales drop, because if I took all the operations on, then sales would drop because I took my eye off of sales, right? It's just those ways of wearing all the different hats and being a business owner. And as you grow, you learn that. But as I was building my team at first, it was out of sheer necessity and trying to fulfill obligations. And they were qualified, but I had no real control over roles and capacity and culture and fit and all of that. And what I have since learned is I think that the value in hiring slow, firing fast, as Jason talks about all the time, because you have to make sure that person fits. And if you make a rush decision into that, you can destroy your whole company culture. And that's down to, it may not even be a competency thing. It could be an attitude thing. Or they could have a great attitude and lack competency, but you might be able to train them into having the skill sets that is needed for that position. So yeah, I think those are some ways that I've grown, and I look at business differently, and having a good attitude, because it's so easy to get stressed and emotionally attached to certain things on a day-to-day basis. And that's one thing I continue to work on. I'm not great at it yet, is I will get emotionally invested into things, and Jason will teach me, like, I love the passion, but you do not have to attach your emotional day to this scenario. And that can be really challenging for me. I will latch onto things, and I will ride that emotional wave. So it's not great for my stress. My watch will tell me that. So
breathe, walk, right? Stand up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Would you like to take a breathing break? Your blood oxygen level tanked. You're not breathing.
I think, yeah, absolutely. Hiring the right team is always critical, making sure that the people are in the right seats on the bus. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. And then, it's the experience of it, right? Is seeing what the outcomes are, what you could delegate to who's going to handle what in the timely fashion. And then, if it doesn't happen, then you can identify those deficiencies, right? Those are some of the things that we look at in businesses. And so it's just kind of that whole progression of, what do I want to have happen? And then utilizing the resources, the team, to help build that up for you. So you're not the one doing everything. You're not the whole organizational chart. Because if you're the whole organizational chart, you'll hit what's called the point of diminishing returns, right? You can only do so much. You have to service the old business before you can bring that new business in. And that's kind of where, a lot of business owners hit that spot. And then it becomes, well, do we have enough to scale? Do we have, where do I find the right people, right? And so, that can definitely be challenging. But, as business grows and develops, you kind of learn what you're looking for, where to place people, and, and we move forward efficiently. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, it's so true. The point of diminishing returns. I mean, that was hard for me to grasp because it's hard when you first start your business and you're doing everything that you can to make it's your baby. And then to be able to like, I have to hand this baby off to a babysitter. Like this
Yep.
is, do I trust this person to raise this child as much as with as much care as I have put into this thing? It's a hard thing to do, but boy, does it pay off. I mean, the returns you get on a good hire is exponential.
I agree. I agree 100%. So, question, at what point did you start thinking beyond success and start focusing on legacy?
Boy, you ask really good questions. um, that's a real man. I keep talking about my husband, but he's the one who gets me. He's more, I think, mature in so many ways than I am. He's like such a good leader. He challenges me with this type of question. And I think that's when I first started thinking about it is like, how am I tied to the business to the point where it's defining me? And so if it succeeds, I feel great. If it's not doing well, I don't do well. I mean, am I inextricably linked to my business in such a way that I am I am going down with the ship if something went wrong, or my emotions, I'm elated when something is good and my emotions are completely dependent on it. When do I make the decision to shift away from that and really define just using my business as a tool towards my legacy? It's such a great question, and it's something I did not think about until Jason started challenging me to think about that in the last couple years. And I don't know that I've really, I think I've shifted into this place where I I am really, how do I phrase this? My priority has been having fun with my husband and like using business as a tool to do that. And we get to talk about business. And it's shifted from I want to run my business to be successful. And I'm like just so tied to that. And it's less about, it's my identity is not tied to my business anymore, I guess is the best way I can phrase it, if that makes sense. And it's more so my business is a tool that I get to help people. I get to like meet needs of my clients. I get to like my employees can feed their families, take vacations when they want, work from wherever they want, because they all work so hard. We don't have like these hard and fast roles. The way our businesses are structured, it doesn't need to be that way. They're outcome based roles. And so it kind of dialed into those things. One is, how do I use this business as a tool to just keep growing and enjoying my relationship with my husband, and challenging myself to like take off some of the immature parts of me. And so it's become a source of joy in that way. How do I continue using these businesses to make my employees' lives better and my technical support team's lives better, and always get feedback on how we can do that better? And then how do we make our customers happy? And those are three things that it feels less attached to business as this make or break for me, and more like I get to use my business as a way to meet all of those, or check all of those boxes, or meet all of those needs. So it's a lot more fun now, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. More freedom, more fulfillment, right? That
Yeah.
that feeling of I was able to help this person achieve their goal, what they wanted to do. And so that in itself is fulfilling just overall, right? But having and knowing that you can do that, you have the freedom to go have, travel. Like I see you and Jason all over the place all the time. But being
Yeah.
able to have that fun and do it together, but build the business, have that freedom, that cash machine, if you will, that continues to fund that freedom, right? But
Mm-hmm.
also to ensure that you're taking care of, other families, just like you're saying with your employees. It's kind of the same thing with me, right? I'm really
Yeah.
big about that. Is it's my employees are, they're not, I wouldn't say relying upon me, but I mean that is my big thing. Is I want to make sure that everybody is benefiting from this too at the same time, right? So,
Yeah. I love that. And I think that men are innately driven to want to leave a good legacy. So it's such an important place for men to get to. I care deeply about enjoying my business from the perspective of how it will cultivate my family. and our future children and our relationship. And, it's really cool because I get to watch my husband with all of this, and what he wants to leave behind is this advocacy for small and mid-sized business owners to give them a voice. And I love that because I get to support that goal of his and be kind of lockstep with him in reaching that goal. So that's very fulfilling for me, more so than I think me trying to establish a goal that lives on beyond me. Because to me, and this is just personal, my legacy is like with my husband and how much joy he has on a day-to-day basis and how well I take care of him and how well I'm supporting him. And also like our future children. And that to me is a legacy that impacts generations like your children and stuff like that. So that to me is a legacy I want to leave. And it would be super cool for my kids, my future kids, to see, oh yeah, like mom ran a business with dad, and they get to see us working together. So that would be a cool, I think, just kind of thinking about it on the spot, it would be a cool legacy to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason and I were talking about that. A legacy is not what you leave someone, but what you leave in someone, right? And
Mm.
and really taking that to that next level, it is yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but
Yeah,
the legacy is the big component, and I 100% appreciate that. That's awesome. So
I love that.
what is next? What's next for Emily?
I gotta learn how to keep my hair out of my face for a whole podcast episode. People are gonna be really annoyed seeing me fix my hair this whole time. What is next? I think it's, Jason and I have made it a goal to be able to create this kind of Everest visual with Built to Exit, where people get to the top of that mountain and reach their next horizon. When they sell their businesses, we help them figure out what's next, but also when they sell their businesses, they become enveloped in a more powerful way in helping us help small and mid-sized business owners. So I'm helping, and we together are building this vision and making it come to fruition. And I think that's really special to me because there's a generational impact that comes from helping business owners find freedom and not have to necessarily work for a boss every single day if that's not what they want to do. If they're struggling in their business and they feel like they have to make ends meet by getting a job, but their blood is to be an entrepreneur. I want to be able to help businesses be and stay an entrepreneur and then get their businesses built to exit. And that's so fun to do. I mean, we've worked with so many clients who we start with them when they are in like the vision stage, and we're with them all the way through a sale. That is like the most amazing thing, because you look back and you feel so sentimental. Like, I remember when I first met with this client and this is how they described their vision, and it went all like this throughout the life cycle of that business and getting them licensed or getting their construction done or getting their doors open, how to drive sales, how to increase cash flow, how to hire properly, all of these things, all the way to how do we help them sell their business. That's such a cool thing. And I think that's the future. That's what we're helping in a very concerted and focused effort in with business owners. And then through that, to be able to have a voice in Washington that advocates fiercely for those business owners, because we really, at this point, I don't see anyone out there doing that. And Jason and I talk about that pretty much daily, that there's nobody out there really advocating for the business owner when businesses were shut down during COVID. No one was here helping us, right? I mean, so many of us had to shut down, and those business owners struggled, and yet they're the backbone of this country. This country does not work without business owners. So to be able to work with Jason and alongside of him in helping him bring this vision to fruition, I think is the future. And that's what I'm really, really excited for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the prime time when everybody needed us, right? Was during the time of the pandemic, due to the fact
Yes.
that they were furloughed or they were, they lost their job, what have you. And so, they're coming to us and they're going, well, I've been a W-2 all my life, employee. How do I start a business? Or I have this vision. What is the first step that I take? And so, seeing that progression, I 100% agree with you on that. in seeing that progression and working with the clients, whether it's over a short period of time or many, many years, just being able to see that growth and that they're happy with where they're at, right? Versus where they used to be. And so, yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Well, what else should we be talking about? What else should people know about Emily?
There's not much to know about me. I'm not, that pretty much just 34 minutes really encapsulates me pretty well, or however long we've been talking. But, I think one thing, Scott, I just want to say I'm very grateful for is all that you have taught me and how to protect our assets, our wealth. Though that is so massively important, and it is something that I think most people put off because they say I can get to that another day, and usually that's the person who finds themselves in hot water, in litigation, in something that comes down the pike, and then they look back and think, I could have made the decision from the outset, and then everything would have been smooth sailing. And I think that's just from a litigation perspective. One of the first things we did when we had a litigation issue come up is how could we pierce the corporate veil? And that's what you do. That's what attorneys will do, is try to figure out a way to get their hands in the pockets of every business that a business owner is associated with, and or every asset, right? Personal or company assets. And you have taught me so much about that, and it has made me such a better and smarter business person because I think through a lot of things in a way that I didn't before, and it really directs my steps in a way that I think you would be very proud of, and where I would otherwise be very messy about certain things. I've become a lot more cognizant of what I'm doing, and what steps need to be taken when a business is open, with accounts, with all of these things that you can't intertwine. And our team, our leadership team that is apprised of those things, they've all been taught through you, and I think it's been a massive shift in our businesses, and it's been really eye-opening for me. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there about, setting up businesses. There's not you'll hear things like you're not required to keep corporate minutes and resolutions in LLCs, or, you're not, there's a lot of, like I said, misinformation out there. And so I think that's really what a lot of people need, is that guidance. There's a lot of companies out there that form entities, and it's like, here you go figure out how to use it. Right. Good luck. But, they're having that guidance and understanding, what do I really need to do in the business? What kind of compliance documents do I need? So that, as you just stated, the whole intent of a litigator is to pierce the corporate veil, or prove what's called the alter ego theory. If we're able to prove alter ego, we can set the companies aside, and now we get to talk directly to the business owner. And meaning that if your intent is to really build that, build an estate, build a legacy, your business can affect that, and a lot of people don't think about that, right? How can my business affect what I've built for my family up to this point? And so getting that proper guidance and really understanding what needs to happen when and where, in the company is crucial. And that's why, we at controllers, that's our primary focus. Is great. You've set up a company. That's awesome. You've taken the first step, but what are you really doing to secure the asset? To, as Jason and I talked about, we talked about building a moat and a complete fortress around your estate. And without, having that guidance and that knowledge, is where, a lot of things can happen. So that's why we're super passionate about it. That's why I love hearing that you've learned a lot from me about that. I appreciate, that's one of those fulfilling aspects. Like I said, it's like, oh, okay, they do understand what I'm saying, right? So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and if I don't understand it, I fake it, and then I ask you the same question the next time we meet. But
Just a little
outside of
bit
that,
different.
yeah,
Just a
that's
little.
right. Yeah. But it goes back to legacy as well, because what you do is you're protecting generations. And so
Absolutely.
there's going to be an impact from what you do long after you're gone. And that's pretty amazing if you think about it. Like every one of your clients that listens to you and does the right thing and actually, implements what you're teaching them, they're protected from generations forward. That's an amazing thing. That's that, I don't know. It feels like you should get a trophy for every client you help, because you're like, that one is going to be so secure for the next 50 generations. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Right. Well,
Awesome.
I appreciate that 100%. 100%. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on Legacy Engineered today. It was a fun conversation. I know we talked about it, that I'm really looking forward to the three of us being on the podcast. As Jason said, that's going to be an awesome show, just because of how the dynamic of the two of you, in addition to us knowing each other for, a while now. So I definitely look forward to that. And I do appreciate you coming on the show today, Emily. And
Thank
I look
you.
forward to future conversations, as we always talk. So
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you. You enjoy the rest of your day. Have an awesome week. And we will talk again soon.
Thanks for listening to Legacy Engineered. For more episodes and to connect with Scott and the team at Controllers Limited, visit controllersltd.com. You can also follow Scott on Instagram and LinkedIn and start building your legacy with confidence today.